I'm at the 2022 Seal Beach Classic Car Show. There's over 500 cars here today. There's a lot to see, so let's go take a look around. I'm here with Phil Nathans. Phil, what is this car that we're standing in front of here?
This is a 1965 Buick Riviera with a Grand Sport option, and then it's got Super Wildcat nailhead engine, which is a 425 dual quad motor. It's a really rare, unusual engine, and that's what we're looking at here.
And how did you come to acquire it? How long ago did you get it? And
I went to an all General Motors show up in the Northridge area 5 years ago, and the guy was showing this car, and I absolutely fell in love with it. I've got some experience with Rivieras, and I know quite a bit about them. And when I saw this car, I said, this is the finest restored 65 I've ever seen. And I said, I have a stupid question to ask. Would you ever consider selling this car? And he said, well, maybe. So 5 years ago, I gave him my phone number, and about a year ago, he called me. It's a beautiful car. It's got a lot of unusual features about it. It's been a California car its whole life. And he did a complete frame-off, nut and bolt restoration on it. And, that I know a little bit about Rivieras and stuff. I know how correctly done the car is, and it's a great car. This is the one-year-only Riviera with the clamshell headlights on it, so people love the way the headlights open on it and stuff.
Every car show seems to have a handful of cars that just attract the crowds, and this is one of them. What is the reaction that you...
I think that, people remember these cars when they were new. They were considered a personal luxury car. They were fairly expensive. They had a lot of power. Most people, didn't want a car that had that kind of power or consumed that much fuel and stuff. But they remember the car, and all the memories they had with them were good. And I think that people just want something they can relate to.
I'm here with Sean Cresswell and his 1964 Chevy. Sean, tell us a little bit about where you got the vehicle in the first place, and you have a sticker in the back of the truck that says "Built, not bought." So you've done a lot of building. Tell us a little bit about what you've done.
Yeah, it's a 1964 Chevy C10. It started out as a long bed. I cut it down to a short bed just because short beds are more recognized, they're more desirable. I left the long bed appearance in it just to kind of throw people off. But I originally got the vehicle in Oregon in 2017. It was a ex-girlfriend's aunt's father-in-law's wife's truck. But it was originally a Hawthorne, California vehicle. It went up to Oregon in somewhere in the 70s, maybe early 80s. And then he bought it, lived on his farm, drove it around, did hay, cattle, all that stuff, typical Oregon stuff. And then it was parked for probably 10 years. And then I got the vehicle, started doing some work on it, moved down to Vegas, tore it completely apart, and just kind of built it how I wanted to. And it wound up being the front cross member and the rear differential and the garage floor, and that's all I had to start with. So the only thing that's still 1964 is the sheet metal itself. Other than that, the frame I built myself, the engine, transmission, everything that's done, air suspension, the right-hand drive conversion, just to be different because everybody else has a Patina 60 to 66 truck. So I did the right-hand drive conversion just to be different.
And what you talked about the engine, what do you have under the hood there?
It's a 454 with a 700 transmission. I have the biggest possible camshaft you can put in it. It's a Comp Cam's Big Mother Thumper. This thing sounds like a jet boat coming down any street, parking lot, alley. It sets car alarms off. The neighbors hate me just because of the way this thing sounds. The headers come right out the fenders. It's just as noisy and loud as possible, but it's to be different.
I'm here with Brian Mullally, and Brian, tell me about this beautiful car we're standing in front of. What is it, and how did you come to acquire it?
It's a 1960 Ford Starliner. I've had a lot of people come by and say they haven't seen one in a while. They ask what part of the Ford family it was, and it's part of the Galaxy family. So basically like a trim level with that package. And the way that we got it, my wife and I were invited by Farmers and Merchants Bank to go to an auction. And I told my wife, because she was worried I'd get another car, I'm like, don't worry, I'm not even getting a paddle. We're not going to have a number. There's no chance we can get a car. So then we see this roll up after we were having a good time. And she's like, wow, that's a beautiful car. I'm like, yeah, it really is. And then it didn't meet the reserve. And I started talking about how, I'd buy that car. And some guy heard me. He's like, busybody, comes over and says, hey, let me get the auctioneer over here and talk to you. So put us together, and I said, yeah, I'd pay X amount of money for it. And next day the guy calls me, and I ended up with the car. And we've never been sorry because we love the car.
That's great. And what kind of reaction do you get from people at car shows when you show it?
People love the car, and it's not just the guys. The women love the car too. I think it has to do with the lines. You don't see lines like this on a car these days. So I'd say half the people that make a comment are women.
And what do you have under the hood there?
So under the hood, the car itself is a 1960, but the engine came from a 1969 Ford Shelby GT 350. So it's what's known as a 351 Windsor motor. And so that's been a modification, as well as a radiator, upgraded radiator so it doesn't overheat, wheels and brakes, but otherwise the car's pretty much stock otherwise.
So I'm walking around, and there's one vehicle that everyone is obviously noticing, and I'm here with the owner, Gary Wales, and La Bistioni. Hi, Gary.
Hi.
So tell me, what did this start as, and what all did you do to it?
Well, this is actually the 8th in a series of these cars that I built. I call them La Bistioni, and it started out as a derelict fire truck. And it's my personal salute to my favorite car in the whole world, which was the Beast of Turin, which was a Fiat.
What are some of the things you've added on to this vehicle? I mean, there's a lot going on.
How about power steering and some disc brakes? Because they had no brakes at all on the front of these. And so we've done that, and just so it can be driven on the street safely and legally. And we drive it safely and legally. There's a couple interesting pieces here. These are the biggest headlights I've ever seen. They were 13 inches. And I acquired them off of the internet, and they were originally cast reflectors on it, about an inch thick, but they were all broken, and so I got it, and I put in new reflectors in it. but they were so unusual. If you look at them, they're very unusual, and they're made in Pasadena. And it was said 1915 MB. So that's Mercedes-Benz. Well, who had something that big in those days? It had to be an old movie car, or from a movie star. And who knows? I've got to check that out. But this is kind of funny. And all of these, just everything on it is just enormous. You can see this is a particularly interesting piece. This was a water heater made in Germany for the Argentine market in 1900. And so we moved it out and added in the things, and there's our accessory. It's kind of a catch-all with neat things. If it's neat and it's period, I use it. And it's just to make, the whole deal is to make people smile. And if you smile, I won. You're smiling.
I'm smiling.
We're all smiling. Even they are smiling in the camera.
Yes, you're smiling too at home. Yeah.
So I love to see the looks on people's faces. They'll come up and they go, "What is that?" And then I get a chance to tell them, and I get a chance to meet with all the people. And this, by the way, I just want to say that Seal Beach is probably my very favorite place in the world. And if I had gotten here before I got to San Fernando from Detroit, I'd be a resident of Seal Beach. So what can I say? It's just a perfect place.
Seal Beach held a classic car show a few months ago in 2021. We're going to take a moment now to take a look at some of the cars that were there, including the best of show.
I've had my El Camino since 1984. I was an Orange County firefighter here in Orange County and actually in Seal Beach. I was able to buy this car in 1984 from Greg Lusher, one of our fellow firefighters. And I've restored it probably twice over the last 35 years that I've had it. It's been a great car. It's grew up in our family from going dirt bike riding to just being an actual truck in the 80s and early 90s to one of the cars that my kids now in their 30s love this car, and it will always be part of our family. This car goes all the way back to seeing it in the early 70s when it came out at Lyons Drag Strip, where I grew up in Long Beach and would ride my mini bike down to Lyons and get to see this car go down the drag strip with a couple bags of cement in the back to give it traction. So I love my El Camino, even though they were kind of a one-off just between the Chevelles and the other muscle cars. It's one that I'll love and has been a cherished part of our family.
And I am the proud owner of this beautiful 1930 Ford Roadster Model A with my husband Robert, and we live here in Seal Beach. It has a new home here, and this was Doris Day's car. She had this car for 35 years, and last year there was an auction with Julian's Auction out of Beverly Hills. And we got online. It was an online sale, and we weren't expecting to buy anything. Let me tell you that. And here comes this car, and I just love Doris Day. I'm a singer. I used to work for Disney for 10 years. And so the car was there, and I said, my husband said, do you really want this car? And I said, oh, honey, I'd die to have this. So the bid kept going up, and it went up, and finally we were the highest bidder, and we got the car. And anyway, the auction raised $3 million of the 1,500 items that they sold, and all of the money went to the Doris Day Animal Foundation.
And I have a 1966 Mustang convertible I've had for 5 years. It's named Ruby after the grandchildren named it. And the only unusual thing is a bench seat. So it has a long front seat that's bench. They only made a few of those. And 302 engine, 5-speed, lowered. It was owned by a fireman in Temecula. That was a lot of fun, and they decided it was time for a move on, so I bought it. I used to have a 67 40 years ago Mustang, and I wish I'd kept it, but now after the kids finished college, I went back and my wife and I got this one.
So it's a 1956 convertible Thunderbird. It's been sitting in a garage for 50 years. I got it exactly like this. So interior paint, chrome, belonged to Grandpa. The only things that I've done to it is I've had the brakes replaced, all the valves, gaskets, the engine, electrical. Other than that, it's completely stock. The great thing about this car is it's not a trailer car. I drive it all day Friday, all day Saturday, all day Sunday. I drive it to the gym, to the grocery store, out to dinner. It brings me an incredible amount of joy to drive it, and the joy then that I get back from everybody around me that tells me stories about their family having them or them wanting one or how beautiful or how much they admire it, that just brings me such joy and makes me want to drive it even more.
Well, this year I added to the Land Rover, I added some Forest Service type accoutrements like the canteens you have above my shoulder over here. Those are from the Forest Service. Also this Pulaski, which is a tool we use on the fire lines. I also added a barbecue to it on one side and a beverage refreshment center on the other side. So I did a few little things just to add to it this year. This strap over here has embossed on it El Carrizo Hot Shots, which is a firefighting crew on the Cleveland National Forest. I was on the crew in 80 and 81. And then on the strap on the other side that marries into it has embossed on it Seal Beach Police Department, which I was a member of from 1984 to 2015.